The Call of the Wild is an adventure novel written by Jack London in 1903. It follows the journey of Buck, who is stolen from his home and sold into service as a sled dog in Alaska. In this film adaptation, Buck is joined by Harrison Ford, playing the role of John Thornton, and together they attempt to tell the story of a dog's journey into the wild. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm on the couch. All right, and this is Ronald, and of course I'm still on the couch, and I just finished watching The Call of the Wild. The Call of the Wild, directed by Chris Sanders, screenplay by Michael Green, based on the novel The Call of the Wild by Jack London, starring Harrison Ford, Omar Sy, Dan Stevens, Karen Gillan, Bradley Whitford, Colin Woodell, Cara G, and Scott MacDonald. Yeah. So this was I saw the previews for this a lot before we went into quarantine. I saw this preview a lot. And I remember I was seeing Sonic and I was in the theater with Curtis. And I turned to Curtis and I was like, I want to see that. And he looked at me and gave me this look like, really? Like both shock and like half amusement. A third amusement, maybe a third disgust. Like he had no desire to see this movie. I read the book as a child, and I don't recall most of the plots. As I started to watch the movie, some of it started to come back to me, and then I went back and read the entire plot of the book. But the plot kind of generally goes without any spoilers too much. There's this dog Buck who lives this pampered life with these people, and he is kidnapped and sold into service as a sled dog in Alaska during the gold rush. I believe this is set in the 1890s. So it's set during the gold rush up in the north where everybody was rushing to get some gold, see what was going on. He's sold there, and it becomes kind of a coming of age story for Buck the dog, as well as a fish out of water story for Buck the dog. Watching it brought back brought back a lot of memories of me as a kid. I thought about the movie Balto. I thought about the book White Fang. Even there was another book with a dog. I don't even remember what it was. It was, oh man, this is gonna bother me. Hopefully I'll remember it before the end of this episode. But there was several other. But watching the dog run around, watching him become a sled dog, all that. I was sitting there and it made me very reminiscent of a child. And it also made me realize that this is a perfect family movie, especially for a time like this. You are going to root for Buck this entire movie. And maybe the first 40 minutes, something is going on with Buck that you're jumping there. You're right with Buck, like, yeah, let's go. And then maybe the last hour of the film is when Harrison Ford enters and the pace of the movie kind of changes. Sometimes to its detriment. There was a couple times where I was like, all right, this is a snooze fest, get to the action. But every time there was an action scene, it always involved Buck, and it was always enough for you to be like, okay, yeah, that was I'm interested to see what happens to Buck next. So it was interesting. And there was some problems with the movie that probably would have irritated me more if I saw this in the theater. There's a lot of CGI. All the dogs are CGI. I think the only thing that aren't CGI in this movie are the goats. At one point, you just see some goats chilling. I'm like, those are real goats. But everything else in this movie CGI. The rabbits, the dogs, the bears, the wolves. And it all makes sense. But it feels like if this movie had a bigger budget, it was probably because they were spending it on CGI, not necessarily on everything else. That being said, the movie is also beautiful. The CGI it's not distracting or anything. It's just you're sitting there and you're watching these animals, and these animals are doing exactly what the director wants them to do. So that kind of makes it easy for them. But there's a part of me that misses the appeal of there being real animals. But obviously you cannot get you cannot get the dogs in this movie to do everything that you needed them to do, because the dog essentially needed to emote. Speaking of emoting, I think the emotional aspects of this movie were done better than The Lion King. And I was really looking forward to The Lion King, but The Lion King was a big CGI movie in which I felt a lot of the emotion was lost from the way that they designed the lions. They made them look so realistic that you miss all of the big emotions that they had. Now, maybe because dogs, I don't know this, but maybe dogs look more expressive naturally than lions do. But in this movie, because you had all of the emotional, felt like the dogs were actually emoting in the CGI. It felt like you could connect with them a little bit more. So I enjoyed watching them for that reason. But there's a part of me that would have missed seeing more, would have liked to have seen like real animals. But that being said, I think it's a good movie. I mean, the acting is fine. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to get an Oscar off this, but I enjoyed seeing everybody in the movie. Harrison Ford is really kind and, wonderful in this movie. He's very much Harrison Ford. He's not doing any heavy lifting. I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up with his beard, was like, all right, guys, I'm ready. Shot all his scenes and, disappeared into the night as Harrison Ford does. But it was good to see him. It was good to see the movie. I started in the beginning, the first 40 minutes, I was really into it. It got a little boring after the first 40 minutes, then it picks back up. And by the time it got to the end, I found myself like tearing up sort of at the story. I had been so engrossed in it. Now, truth be told, I've been very emotional during this quarantine, so it doesn't take much, but also there were definitely emotional parts of this movie that definitely resonated with me. When it gets to the end, it kind of becomes like a buddy adventure movie between Harrison Ford and the dog Buck. So it kind of becomes a buddy movie between them, which there was a part of me that just resonated when the movie finally gets to the ending. That being said, if you are a family, this is a good family movie. If you have young children, especially under the age of 10, this is a good family movie, especially if they're not too strung out on on Marvel movies, and not too if you just need something simple with just a basic plot, all that's Call of the Wild. It's perfect. I sat here and I was thinking, I think if I could pick one family, I'm thinking about my friend Marcus Jackson and his family. When I think about him, I could think about each family member of them rooting for a different part of it, enjoying a different part of this movie. I think Marcus would enjoy the action between the dogs. There's an actual dog fight in this movie that is not pushed by humans. I know there's a lot of problematic parts of dog fighting, but I mean, in general, there's an actual dog fight, which at some point I was sitting there and kind of narrating in my head in Marcus's voice, well, you about to catch these puppy hands, which I enjoyed for myself, but I could see Marcus enjoying that. I could see his wife, Jen, enjoying the little adventure parts. I can hear her saying, "Oh," a lot. I think she would, there's a lot of emotional aspects I think she would enjoy about the movie. The kids, I think, would enjoy just seeing the doggies all running around, and there's a lot of big, beautiful shots. I think they would enjoy that. There's a fish and all kinds of wildlife and stuff for them to enjoy on screen as well. So I think families in general, and Marcus, I'm sorry for picking your family, but I think families in general will all find something to pull out of this movie. With that being said, of course, you could bring your kids. I think it's worth getting for the quarantine. If you want to settle everybody down, get them ready for bed, this is a good movie to watch. With all of that being said, I give it 3 of 5 stars, and I think that's a fair rating both in the theater and out of the theater. There was a part of me when sitting on the couch towards the end that was like, I'm gonna give it the 4-star, I'm gonna give it the couch bump, but I don't think this movie deserves one because it's really just a straight shot down the middle. And I think both in the theater and on the couch, I'm like, 3 stars, good movie. Not great, but and a little, they probably could have done more. I think that I definitely felt like there was something missing, but overall, I mean, I feel satisfied with that movie. So yeah, I don't know if I'd watch it again. But I mean, I watched it once and that was fine. So yeah, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at ohitsBigRon. If you like this show, check out our sister show, Time Well Spent. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. But until then, I'll be here on the couch.